All right, so I just wrote this action type description. So for those of you who don't know, if you go to builder.com/actions, you can see this list of what we call the actions glossary. And there's actually an elements glossary as well, but it's not nearly as filled out with details yet. So if you just go to elements, you'll actually see there's one there as well. So these are already live, and we'll be filling out all the contents of all these things as we go here. But back in actions, you can come here and search for anything you want. So like I had, we have this mass change action, and this was one that someone had asked about earlier in the week. So I decided to go ahead and write the docs on that one. So the way that these work, we walk through kind of like high level detail, and then we go through each input argument, screenshot of it, how it's used, different options in it. And then sometimes we might actually link out to the use case around that particular thing and why you would do a certain way. And then at the bottom, we'll have use cases. And this is where sometimes these will be very specific, and sometimes it'll be more high level, just general discussion on it. In this case, I went real specific about updating or deleting records in Builder collections, and using this action in combination with the date, oh, that's misspelled, data update record action to basically get a list of records from a collection, mass change one of those values, and then reset that whole set of data back in with one action, right? So you're doing two actions, one to get it and modify the data, and the other one to save that data back into the Builder collection. So you'd have a flow like this. And then I kind of step through all the different pieces of that. And in here, I have a test project where I was building all of this out. And this is what that actually looks like. So in the Transform JSON Data Mesh Change action, this starting array can really be anything. So we have all these different actions for Transform JSON Data. And you can pull in any starting array or starting object or whatever the JSON is. But in a lot of cases, you can also just use data collections from Builder or just data in a grid or something like that, because Builder is really just all passing JSON around, so it's just JSON arrays and objects going around everywhere. So in this case, what I'm doing is getting a set of items. I'm filtering it for a certain type. And then I'm basically deleting that. So the field I want to modify is the deleted field, and the new value is 2. So 2 in Builder deleted means deleted permanently. So if you set a value of 2 into any record in Builder, it's going to delete that record permanently. So this is basically going to take this entire set of records, modify this one field to have that value, but it's not going to save that data yet. All we're doing is setting it into a variable here. So this sets it into a variable called records to delete. And then after that, in the data update record action, choose the same collection, which is items. And normally this is going to come as a JSON object where you set a field and then a value and a field and then a value, and you're updating a specific record with values, with new values across that one record. But this action is actually pretty robust. It allows you to actually send sets of data. By the way, it's the same for the create. So when you do the create, you can actually just replace the create JSON object where it's got all the fields. If you replace that with an array of objects and all the field IDs match in the JSON, it will actually create a large set of records. So sometimes another use case for the mass change, it's like, say you wanted to duplicate a set of records. You take a set of filtered records out of a collection, and then you mass change all of the IDs to 0, or just remove the ID property completely, and then do a save record, so a create record instead of an update, and send that whole array as a create, and it'll actually create that whole array of records. So you basically just duplicated the whole thing. You're going to get a whole nother set of IDs out of that. So the mass change is really a generic mass change, but when combined with Builder collections and using the update and the save, or I'm sorry, the update and the create record actions, you can basically just send arrays of data back to Builder. So that's what I'm doing here, and that's what I did for this example, for the use case here. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, or if you see anyone in Discord asking about this kind of thing, this was good. This is a good place to send them. And I linked to it in the data collections area as well. So any questions on all of that? There's kind of a lot in there. And those actions are really robust, and they're meant to be kind of used in succession like this. So like you might have you might use these other ones as well. So maybe you get a filtered set of data, and then you want to remove one object, and then you want to do, remove some properties from those objects. And then like you can do a cascading succession of things where maybe you're doing a set of things to that as you go down, and then you update all the records. Like this is a really common thing that I'll do in more complex systems. But any questions on any of that before we jump into other stuff? There's a lot in that one. Drew, you have anything to add there?
No, some of that's actually kind of new to me. Like I actually am not that good with mass changing stuff in Builder. And like I basically knew all that, but seeing it laid out, I was like, "Ooh, you know what? This is much more clear than I realized." So I can't really add, but I can say like I'll probably use this more after even just seeing this little demo.
Nice. Yeah, I think conceptually, if when you're manipulating data in Builder, we intentionally like kind of don't have guardrails around that stuff, right? So you can just kind of do whatever you want to do with it. But you got to be careful, right? Like if you could, like, say you were removing something, if you remove the wrong property or the wrong value, and you're creating records, and you really need to be aware of what you're doing with all that data. One way I do that sometimes, I mean, obviously in a test environment, it's no big deal. You just create the data and delete it out afterward or whatever. But you can also, instead of updating the record, you could also just set this into a grid on the page and see the results before you hit the save. So like as you're building, I'll do that a lot, where rather than storing this in a variable, I'll just set this into a grid element on the page, and then actually go bind the data on the grid row, so that I can see what those results are going to look like and make sure that it's what I'm wanting it to be. So you can do that pretty easily in Builder, where you just like do all that. And then I've had in some of my projects where like I go down that whole set of flows, and I'll actually have this on a separate page, like on a test page like this inside the project. And then I just go copy this flow out and put it on the other page, and it's like 99% done. And I got to test it all out without like messing with my UI or messing with anything else in the project. So just a few best practices there. So yeah, that's it on that one. Before I go into, there was some questions on, let me go get that list before I go into the extensions. Does anyone have any questions for today? Oh, Fraser asked something. Oh yeah, absolutely. For doing those data migrations. That's actually a really good point. I do that like when I'm wanting to make similar data in another collection, right? So like sometimes in a project you have two collections that are kind of similar, or they're related to each other, or where they need to merge data together. Right. So like I've got these two things, and then I'm creating like a third set of data. That's exactly how I'll do it. I'll like go get that filtered set, go get that filtered set. And then I'm working in these actions to merge it all together. And then I use a create action that takes that final set from the variables, from the final variable that's an array, and just save all of that at once. So it's really that's exactly the kind of work that those actions are for, Fraser.